All right. Hey everyone, and welcome back to BakedHR. My name is Jasmine Wilkes, and I am here with my co-host Christina Minier. Hi, Christina.
Hello, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a while since we have done one of these. How have you been doing?
Oh my gosh, I've been doing pretty good. I can't believe it's been 2 whole weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Still laying low, still wearing my mask when I go to the grocery store and go to work. Trying to get through the holidays and all things year end.
You mean like telling employees where their W-2s are and when they're coming?
Jasmine, why do people want their W-2s before the year is over? Listen, I know I'm going to get those calls hot and heavy this week because our accounting, and listen, and I'm not an accounting person, I'm just telling you what I heard. Our accounting year ends on 12/25 or something. So I know everyone's going to be like, yay, that means my W-2 is ready. Give me my W-2.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm not a tax professional.
That is not what that means. Sorry. Okay. So, since we're entering a new year, we wanted to come and talk about a very interesting topic that has been really kind of in the media from in my eyes, at least for the last maybe 2 to 3 years, where people have really been talking about it more often. So I was scrolling on Facebook, and you never know what you're going to get on Facebook. It's a little iffy.
I don't recommend Facebook. I don't.
But I was scrolling on Facebook, and one of my HR groups, I saw a screenshot post of something that I thought was very interesting. And I'm going to add it to the video here. You can see it. But what it says is, instead of teaching people to not post unprofessional stuff, consider that our purpose of existence is not to be professional working beings 24/7. And I really love that. Like I sat with it for a little while, and then I sent it to Christina and told her I wanted to talk about this. But especially being in HR, a lot of people say that we are the ones that are to set the standard for professionalism at work, because we're the ones that, have to write the policy books and the handbooks. And so, when people can't have or do certain things, it's, well, why has HR made it this way? So we wanted to come and talk to y'all today.
I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here thinking, lucky for my employees, I'm drinking on social media and I have my WAP Christmas sweater on. So the bar is so low for us, okay?
And y'all, she has been waiting on that WAP Christmas sweater. So we better get some likes and comments about that WAP Christmas sweater.
Oh my God. Listen, one of our favorite people, Sarah Morgan, she commented when I posted this on Instagram and she said, Merry Wapmas. And I have been so tickled ever since. I went back and updated the caption. But yes, I ordered this thing in the beginning of November and it just came yesterday, which was the day after Christmas. So also my 16-year-old, absolutely mortified at this sweater. And while we're on it, I've got one of my friends gave me this little smells like WAP. You can't see it because the lighting is terrible. Smells like WAP candle. And my in-laws, real quick sidebar, my in-laws popped over for one day, which I don't want to talk about, the stress of, it's a pandemic, people. But anyway, and my brother-in-law, who is a sophomore or junior in college, was like, oh, I wonder if she knows what that means. Get out of here. Of course I know what that means. Get out.
This is not a lame household, sir. We know what it means.
We got it going on over here. Get out. No, so yes, you did send me that, and I had to sit with that screenshot for a minute too, because I was like, oh, where is she going with this? But then the more I think about it, and I think for you and I think we have our own brands outside of what we do for a living. And so I started thinking about it through that perspective, because I don't care to get on here and have a glass of wine with you guys and, be myself. But there are employers who I've had before who would totally frown upon that, if not try to terminate me for that. So then I was like, okay, well, this might be a little interesting. We will see where Jasmine's going. Before you jump in with kind of what you wanted to cover, I wanted to ask you, do you think it matters? Because when social media kind of first started being a big deal, as far as employers were concerned, everything that we learned was advise your employees that if they list where they work, then they need to be careful what they say, because whatever they say online or out in the community, if you give branded swag, if you're wearing that at an event, then you're kind of automatically representing the company, whether you intend to or not. That was sort of the advice that we were given. From a recruiter perspective, I feel like it never really mattered to me if you listed where you worked, because I was going to find out where you worked anyway. So, I mean, is there a difference? Does it matter if people list where they work? Do you think that this professionalism quote applies or does not apply?
I don't think it matters that people list where they work. I think people need to understand that they are running a risk. But I think it's more so based on the type of person you are. So, I mean, you need to be careful whatever you post, because this is the internet. It cannot be deleted. It is here forever. So let's start there. Okay.
Coming from two queens of screenshot, we will screenshot something in a heartbeat.
Very fast. But so, one of our friends, and this, y'all, we get on here sometimes and we have no idea what we're going to talk about. But one of our Twitter friends, Madison Butler, she is a great example of this, because, she will post something that is honest, that is true, that is not attacking people. And then people will come into her comments attacking her. And I mean, saying just downright disrespectful things. And
some of the nastiest comments I have ever seen, not just hey, I can see your employer in your bio, but hey, I can see your name. Are you not ashamed of that behavior? But people really out here acting just any kind of way. But yeah.
And so when she takes a screenshot of that, or if anyone, who sees the comment takes a screenshot of that and then sends that to that person's employer and says, hey, is this the type of person that you want working for you? Then that's a risk that you're running when you got on social media and decided to, say very disrespectful and, racist comments to her. So is that a risk? Yes. I don't feel like it's a bad thing, because people are not their organizations. Yes, we work for companies. Yes, we do a lot of things, and even some of our social media, sometimes it blends over and you might see people who, rep their companies on their own personal social media page if their company is being great at that time. But we are our individual selves. We didn't come into this world and was like, hey, you're assigned to this company. Everything that you do and says is for this company.
Well, especially if people are like you or I'll speak for myself here, but I tend to switch companies every 3 to 5 years now. So that's going to change as I change employers, but I do. So I don't know. I feel completely torn on this topic because I'm like, I can make an argument for either way, right? And I feel like you and I are in different positions, and other people who do what we do are in different positions, not just because we're in HR, but because both of us always end up in positions where we have something to do with the company's social media.
God, yes.
And it's never a secret, no matter if we want it to be or not, right? So we have, I feel like, and this is the difference between you and me too, I think, Jasmine, because sometimes you could say, like, I've drank the corporate Kool-Aid. So, you know, I have a different view, but I'm like, yeah, you kind of do. Even like the last time you were job searching, I said, Jasmine, put your social medias back on private. And you were like, okay. I was like, please just do it.
No, and
Not because I disagree with anything that you post, but just because I know the way that industry thinkers think, you know, and I know that they might say, oh, we don't want to deal with something that's so straightforward. We don't want to deal with a comment that we think is controversial, whether it's right or wrong is not what we're looking at. We're looking at, is this going to make a coworker uncomfortable? Is this going to, pull bad press for the organization? You know, I think one of the things that tickles me is on my little, like, on our, like, who do I contact when I have these questions within the organization? Ethics falls under me, which totally makes sense. But like sometimes I'm like, I'm your ethics person. No, I think I have really good ethics. I'm totally just kidding. But like some of that stuff is subjective. So it's hard to know what's okay and what's not okay. Now, when you bring up like Madison and her post, like some of that shit is just wild. Those people have totally overstepped their boundaries. But I think we could dig up some examples where it's like, it could go either way.
Yeah.
Do you remember, and I can't remember how long you've been in the workforce. Do you remember the Ashley Madison scandal? It was. Okay, you do. Okay. So for some people who don't remember, it was a porn site's not the right word. It was like a hookup site that was targeting married people.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I don't remember how it came about, but like the list was publicized and every employer was checking, like, do we have employees who are on this list who like paid for services, I guess. I guess maybe.
I can't remember if they, well, I guess like the membership they paid for that.
It was a membership. Yes, I think you're right. It was a membership. And so, and I worked for a defense contractor at the time, and we absolutely looked through that list for employee names, found some employee names. So like in a situation like that, like they thought that what they were doing was private. So could and should the company hold that against them?
Okay, so this is my thing. Like, yes, to me, if they were, you know, cheating on a spouse, then that is wrong. However,
but what's that got to do with work?
Exactly. That's my question. What does that have to do with the job that they're coming in, clocking in to do for your organization? Yes, I understand where it could make the organization look bad by saying, oh, hey, this organization had, you know, employees who participated in this. But what does that have to, like, I have nothing to do with you cheating on your wife. I don't plan on being in the divorce room if she end up, if it gets to that.
What if the ethics point of contact was on that list?
I
mean, does that change anything? They have a different responsibility within the organization. They're kind of setting the tone for ethics. They're helping build the policy around ethics.
Maybe because I have the mindset of what people do, you know, on their own is on their own. I understand where the argument can be made for it, but have they done something to show their ethics is in the wrong place in the workplace?
Oh, see, here we go. You know who we should have had as part of this conversation? Was
Who?
lawyer friend. We
Of
should have had Kate
course.
on here as part of this conversation, because you know she's always like, give it a good Google before you hire. And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't Google anybody before you hire them. But I have another example, because at that same organization, one time I was scheduling an interview for a candidate, and one of the interviewers, not even the final decision maker, Googled the candidate and let me know they were concerned about their Facebook profile. And it was a picture of a young man on the floor next to the couch, and there was like a bottle of liquor in the picture, but you couldn't see the person's face. You could only see like what they were wearing and like their hair. You couldn't see their face. And it was kind of like, the first name was like Nick or something like that. I don't remember. But so it's like not like a super unique name where you're like, oh yeah, I only found 2 people under this name and one of them is in our location, so I'm pretty sure this is the person. Like, there were multiple results for that name in our area. So I was like, well, I can't even tell you if that's our person. And once again, for that 107th time, I've asked you, please do not Google candidates.
And see, that's my thing, like right there. Okay, so a person sitting on the floor with a liquor bottle next to them. Maybe they were having a hard day and it turned out to be a good picture. What does that have to do with what they can do at work?
Oh, I hit Jasmine's button. Okay, yeah, so, but what happens when we hire that person and they come to work their 2nd month drunk?
Okay, well then you deal with that then. But you can run that risk with anyone.
But now that person thinks that we knew that that was a risk because of their Facebook profile picture.
Wait, the person who
Googled, the person who Googled, Nick.
The person who Googled should have minded their own business. What their profile picture looking like?
I'll send it to you later. Not good. It's not attractive, at least. Like growing tomatoes or something, though. So nothing completely unethical as far as I know. But that's just the kind of, that also is a reflection of the kind of mindset that organization had. So I think that played into it a little bit as well. But it's like, where do you draw the line? Because I remember very early on learning from attorneys that, you know, an example might be if you Google like somebody you're interviewing for a marketing director position, obviously whatever they say on social media is important because they're going to be helping shape the communication and the external marketing for your organization. So people would view that, like ordinary people in the community would view that as a reflection of your company. So maybe it's not what you and I think. Maybe it's what the community thinks. What do you think about that?
Okay, so this is the thing for me. And like you said, I've worked in organizations where businesses and, nonprofit organizations where I've been also responsible for the social media posted at the job, as well. Mm-hmm. So my thing with that is what I post on my Jasmine's social media, a lot of time is nothing like what I post on the business or organization's social media. But that is because as an adult, I understand what that organization is looking for from their social media standpoint. I understand that my job is to make their social media more relevant and seen for the products or business purposes for that organization. So my thing is, people who post who might, work in marketing, just because they, post about L'Oreal hair or whatever makeup L'Oreal does, doesn't mean that they're not gonna post MAC on their own personal social media.
Well, What a specific pickle. Okay, so I want to back up just a tiny bit
Mm-hmm.
and say I totally understand the idea behind like I shouldn't have to be the professional face and representation of my organization 24/7. Like, can I just leave that at work or whatever? But I think that we have such a screwed up culture and society as a whole in this country that I don't know how to separate myself from my job.
And that is a major problem. And I think that's the biggest issue, is that organizations have set that standard, and people have set that standard of, we are supposed to be on the go, in a sense, working, especially like salaried employees 24/7, all day, every day. Which, I mean, in HR, I tell, like, I've told my boyfriend in the past, like, if I work for a company that is working overnight, when I worked at Domino's, if a store was to get broken into at 11 o'clock at night, I'm going to get a phone call. That's just the way it
True.
works. I mean, that I'm expecting, and that I understand, but I really think that in some way we need to do a better job of separating social media, or just a person from the organization that they work for 24/7, all day, every day. You cannot always be burnout. We talk about burnout all the time. That leads to burnout. If someone is expected to be a certain way just because their organization says so 24/7.
So do you think that it changes depending on what your position is with the organization? Because like if you're a VP, is that different?
It changes depending on your position. I even think it changes depending on the organization and the culture that organization sets. Like, you're not going to be a defense contractor and government contractor and talking about, I hate the Army, on your own social media. Like, you're going to get a phone call.
We don't hate anything. We're totally nonpartisan. We hate nothing. Stop. Okay. So moving on. What if you work? Okay. So listen, 2020 has been just shit, right? And so like, I recognize that people are in positions where maybe they can't go have this conversation. We recently had this conversation at work, right? Because we're trying to increase our social media exposure. We're trying to increase our following, we want employees to like share what we post. Like, we really, having like a social media plan is so new for us at work. And I said to my boss, I was like, before I go telling everybody to share what we post, like, we need to have a conversation about what your expectations are, because what if they're posting crazy stuff on their own personal pages? And I need you to understand that now you're paying them to post things on social media and, blah, 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 blah. So we cover all those bases. And he was like, look, we're probably already paying them to be on social media anyway. I mean, and that's not, and I think that that's probably a fair assessment, because you know what, whenever I'm waiting on a response back, sometimes I flip over my Twitter and I scroll through Twitter and I'm totally on the clock. I don't think, like, he thinks that people are probably sitting in front of social media for like hours at a time. I don't think that that's what's going on. But he's also like not of the opinion that we should police what people say. But some organizations are of that opinion, and some organizations go so far as to actively monitor employees' social media.
Yep.
What do people do in that situation? Because, yeah, maybe I want to make the case that I'm not my employer 24/7, but it doesn't matter if like a VP is over here monitoring their social media and that's how that VP thinks. What do you do in that situation?
I can honestly say I don't know, because I have been in that situation. And it's difficult. At one point I had to sit down with one of my managers and say, look, this clearly isn't going to work. If this is what's going to happen, and someone is going to get offended by me telling my truth, not by it would be something completely different for me. It would have been around the circumstances. It would have been different had I been attacking someone, had I been
Right.
being disrespectful of someone. But for me, I was stating my opinion that, of something. And one of the higher ups didn't like it. I can't tell
Okay,
you
so
what
let me
to
just
do.
ask a clarifying question for the audience. You posted something in general, not directed towards your employer or that higher up who didn't like it.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so, but they saw it
Mm-hmm.
and they told the HR manager or what?
Yeah, they told the HR
Ooh.
manager.
See, so that's the kind of situation I'm talking about. Like, not everyone can just like walk away from a job that's like gonna go crazy and like watch everything they say. Now, it's different if I'm like, screw this place. I'm gonna harm somebody at work, or I'm gonna harm the facility in some way. But like, what do? You're just trapped. So do you play the game, or you keep speaking your truth?
You go through and block everyone, and then put your profile on private.
And you know what?
You keep going.
That's so true, because one of our favorite memes, if you're editing things into the video, we need to find that meme and edit it into the video where it's like your coworker's like, are you on Instagram? And you're like, please don't follow me. Or like, we worked with someone who would say like he found all of us first and blocked us all so we couldn't find him, which I think is super smart.
It is. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. And now I think about, again, people like you and you have more of a following than I do, but like I can block my coworkers, but that doesn't guarantee that something's not going to get screenshot and shared where one of my coworkers is going to see it, or a higher up who's not going to like it is going to see it.
And starting in, I think, probably 2018, because I got my new job in 2019. So that was one of the things that I did when I went in for an interview, is I asked, how do you feel about me posting on social media? And not just from a standpoint of me posting on social media, but at that time I was very much posting for organizations and attending, conferences and things like that. So my question was, how do you feel about this? Is there something that you can accept? Because my goal is to work for an organization that is fine with me doing that. Let's just be clear that, a lot of the organizations I've worked for, have been fine with it. And my thing is, if this is another form of me bringing in money into my household to make sure that things are good in my household, then I'm gonna do it. I'm asking you up front before I even sign on the dotted line that yes, I'm new a new employee for such and such organization. I'm telling you up front, and asking you how you feel about this.
Mm-hmm. But I
But
think, in my opinion, without specific examples, that conversation is useless.
And I can understand that too, because really it boils down to this, that everything can go either way. When you see a screenshot, someone can be offended by it and somebody be like, no, they fine. I don't feel no
Yeah.
way.
What's wrong with that totally racist statement? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's, hey.
So I feel like, Jasmine, somehow I took us right back where we started, and we don't have an answer to this question.
I don't think we will ever have an answer for this question. Just like I said, just because of the way that this country is structured behind working, the way that most businesses and organizations are structured behind, the thought of of working and how their employees are supposed to work. Um, I I don't think no one will ever be able to. I won't say we won't ever be able to change the idea of what being a professional or professionalism in an organization means, but I do feel like it's going to take time. We've just now gotten started with when people talk about professionalism, a lot of people talk about the way that someone looks at work. And so we've just got it started with, the House passing the Crown Act, what, 2 years ago for the first time? So, I mean, I feel like we have a long way to go, but especially with us coming into a new year, right off of, well, still in a pandemic where people have been going for months now, either without a job or working a job that they had to get, to continue paying bills because, the government ain't sent any more money and no one is truly acting like COVID is a thing. The governors are being like, oh, we're just going to have a safer at home order and it's going to be okay. I think
That's working out so well for us.
People are going through so much and we're entering into a new year. We need to be more mindful of how people are going to show up at work, because you're not going to get the same employees you got in 2019. You're probably not even going to get the same employees you got in 2020 because people are tired.
Listen.
So
I know one thing. I am tired. And I do recruiting and stuff at work. And so we've had a conversation about we've got to change our approach and we've got to change our expectations. Mm-hmm. But I want to come back to something that you mentioned, which is the Crown Act. And so for those of you who are not aware of the Crown Act, it stands for Create a Respectful and Open Workplace for Natural Hair Act. It's a California law which prohibits discrimination based on hairstyle and hair texture by extending protection for both categories. And yes, I really just had to say that. So specifically for my fellow white women at work, I can go to work, and this is the wildest thing to me, Jasmine. I can go to work without shampooing or brushing my hair, and people will be like, oh, your hair looks so beautiful. You're so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. But the second you show up in box braids, they got questions.
Did that grow overnight? How did it get like that? Oh my God, can I touch it?
Like, I can't believe that hair in general is a question. I mean, because I think of like, okay, I had an employee who worked for me at one time and her hair was black and she had like a blonde stripe right here. And I'm going to say, not something I would have personally done. But all I was interested in is how well she did her job. How well do you carry out the functions of your job? But like you've said over and over tonight, like people think that professionalism has something to do with how you look. And for some reason, people want, and I'm just going to say this, people want Black women to show up to work with white woman hair.
That's true.
And it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Why do you care? Why do you care about the hair? For one, just why do you care about the hair? And like, for example, when Amber started wearing a wrap to work, people were like, what is this? You know what it is? It's called mind your own business. That's what it is. It's called mind your own business. How can I show up looking wild and someone always has something to say about your Amber's hair? It doesn't make sense to me.
Because your wild is acceptable, whereas our wild is, you can run a hot comb through it. You can, make it straight.
None of them white executives know shit about a hot comb. So don't even. Nobody said something that
Okay, a
specific to
flat iron.
you. It don't make sense. Well, why couldn't you do blah blah blah? Why blah blah blah? Why does your hair look different than her hair? Why blah, blah, blah? It does not make sense to me. Focus on the job skills. Focus on the job skills.
And that is the
That's just
definition
like,
of
and
professional.
this is like a whole nother video, but also like, and I'm going to use Amber specifically, even though Amber's probably going to kick me in the face. Amber and I could walk into the same conference room and I could lose my freaking mind over something like Teresa Giudice flip a table, New Jersey housewife style. Okay. And people would go, oh, that's just Christina. But if Amber would have done it, if Amber would have even raised her voice, she immediately would have been the angry Black woman at work.
Of course. Of course.
That's so stupid. That is so stupid. I am like wilding out over here, flipping tables, and you guys are like, that's just Christina. Are you kidding me?
I think it's, and being honest, and this is probably going to get a few, but I think it's one of those things where for some people, one, it's just, some people just don't know, or they pretend not to know. And then for some people, I think it's a fear thing. I feel like because, you know, Amber shows up to work every day, very calm. She goes, she does what she needs to do. If someone asks her a question, you know, she can answer it. But then when someone does something to her and she responds in a way that is
Totally appropriate.
yeah, it's like you came at her, now you want her to be still all very nice and proper when you came at her in the wrong. And so then it comes to fear of, oh my gosh, she was so quiet, what is she going to do? You know, how did she respond like that? How did she just flip the tables? Who did we hire? This worries me because she just completely changed personalities. Like that person that is sitting on the floor with the liquor bottle in their profile pic, even though some people can just sit there with the liquor bottle, not even have a drop of it a day in their lives, but they just want to look cool on social media. So they're going to have that with the liquor bottle. But, you know, how did she change? Oh my God.
So basically at this point, I feel like all we've done is confuse the audience and give the audience more reason to think there's not a solid answer to this challenge. But I do think that, you know, HR people can be a strong influence in this conversation, because we can go have this conversation with our leaders and we can sit down and we can say things like, okay, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, you're in this position now. But what would you have said on social media if you had social media 20 years ago when you were in their position? You know, I like to have conversations with managers and stuff, and I like to start it with, what kind of manager do you want your people to say they had? So I think that could apply in this scenario. Mm-hmm. If you think, what are you making that face for?
No, I'm just thinking about something. I would just like to know why, you know, what is the big deal with people who work in a business that's not going to see a customer, at least on a daily basis, like, unless, especially now, you know, you ain't going to see a customer in certain businesses.
I hope not.
Warehouse. What does it matter if someone has their hair color red or purple or green or blue or yellow for all,
or with a blonde stripe
or
right
the
down
blonde
the middle,
stripe,
like a skunk, or tattoos, even tattoos. Like, I get asked that question a lot from like a recruiting perspective, like, oh, what are people going to think about tattoos? And I'm like, don't ask me, because I don't give a shit. I really don't. I don't care. Now I think that, you know, if you have like the F word tattooed real big right here, and you're going to interact with me, I like, maybe we got to have a conversation about what's the right time to cover that up. I don't know. Or if you have like a naked one, like, I don't know, but it can be different for different scenarios, right?
Yeah. So like at Chuck E. Cheese, you couldn't have tattoos, or you had to
Okay,
be.
but if you're gonna be Chucky in the costume, no one's gonna see your tattoos.
Okay, but friend, you can't stay in Chucky all day. See, you gonna fall out.
You gonna get tased and have to go home early.
And so we had this thing of where we couldn't, for a long while, like we had to turn away a lot of people because of tattoos. And then someone came in with
Liverpool ain't
makeup.
big enough for Chuck E. Cheese to be turning away people with tattoos, but
Listen,
okay, whatever.
we have to be protective of the kids. The kids can't just be seeing anything.
I'm sorry, these are the same kids who are coming in at 3 years old with a "It's my effing birthday" shirt. Oh, okay, yeah, let's protect those children.
But this person came in with makeup, and she said, well, because it was on like her arm, and she said, well, I can cover it, with the makeup. And I was like, oh, all right, if that's what you want to do when you're at work and you agree to do so, cool. And then the general manager said, well, no. And I was like, And he was like, what if we pull her into the kitchen? She can't have makeup where she's cooking people's food. And I'm like, I hired her to be a game room attendant. What you pulling her in the kitchen for?
She ain't trying to work in the kitchen. Don't put her in the kitchen. Listen, on a side note, no matter what your feelings are about Kat Von D, her tattoo cover-up is phenomenal. I had a department manager who did not love the tattoo on my foot. Mm-hmm. So I covered it up for a long time. And then when I learned the executive leadership didn't give a shit, I stopped covering it up. But that's a story for another time. So all of this, your looks, what you're posting on social media, what you're saying at the grocery store, in your branded gear, like all of it, like, how do we give our people permission to not be the brand 24/7? And do we want to give our permission to people to not be the brand 24/7? I guess that's the question.
That is a question. And I feel like in 2021, we need to answer that question, and we need to bring more grace into our workplaces when it comes to what the idea of professionalism is. Because if you Google it, or if you break out a dictionary, it's going to talk about
Webster.
It's going to talk about the skill that a person does. It does not come into play about what they look like and
their appearance.
Yes. And the color clothes or color hair or color contacts they decide to wear to work,
or fingernails or whatever. I think that's a good definition. I totally back that up. So hopefully all of our HR friends who have watched this will start thinking differently about what that means and pulling together a stronger argument for how to change the organization's expectation of that 24/7 professionalism. And we'll see what happens. And obviously we're here. We want to keep the conversation going. So if you have an example at work that you want to talk about, or if you have questions that maybe we can explore with the audience for you, we would be happy to hear those or see those. Jasmine, what is our email address? Because I never can remember.
So send us an email at bakedhr@gmail.com. Don't know why that's so hard, Christina.
What's the name of this show? I don't know. I'm on my 3rd glass of wine. I'm just kidding. I'm fine. I know the name of the show.
So send us an email or follow us on Instagram at BakedHR. And definitely like and subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching right now, BakedHR. We will have
There's a subscribe button somewhere.
We will have a link to the Crown Act in the description below, so you can read and learn more about that. But yeah, leave us a comment.
Because your organization should not need legislation to honor this. Like, you need to think about this. We shouldn't have to legislate this kind of stuff. You should just naturally be like, okay, that's a human being with human hair. We're going to just accept them how they are. But Yes, continue. We will give you resources for it.
So leave us a comment, send us an email so we can talk about it. We want to keep this conversation going. Tell us, what does professionalism mean to you? And then we'll see you next time on BakedHR. Bye.